We sometimes have machines that are turning on, water's coming in, however water is not flowing down the ice making tray inside. In this case, the internal water pump may have failed, which is a rather easy item to replace. It just involves removing a few components off the ice maker before you can replace it. So to start this, we'll need to enter the ice machine, which we'll do by removing the top cover, which is held in place by these two screws. We've removed the two back screws. We'll hold the rear cover and we'll lift the top. We'll move the back tray out of the way and remove the lid and put them aside. To access the water pump, we'll need to move the condenser forward. This is also connected to wires on the rear of the unit. So to move the condenser forward, the first point would be to remove the 4 screws holding it in place. We'll also cut the cable tie holding the wires in place. These wires run right down to the control board. We'll then remove the cover off the control board in preparation. Now our focus will turn to the inside of the machine. We'll need to remove the side cover, which is held in place by a vertical screw and a lower screw. Now that the cover is removed, we can do this from the top. The cover then just needs to be wiggled until the clip unlodges. We'll then move the condenser forward. There is a glued section at the bottom. With a little bit of pressure, it will come away like that. There is slight movement in these pipes to allow this to happen. Now that the condenser's moved out of the way, we'll be able to access the water pump that's located in the lower tray. To remove this, it slides into position, so we pull it, the pump backwards off its mounts, like that. Then we can lift the pump out of its location. Now we'll need to remove the cable tie that's holding the pump to the water hose. Now we can disconnect the water hose, and then we trace the wire back up to the unit to the rear of the machine. Once we have this wire and have confirmed it's the correct wire, we'll then follow it down to the rear of the machine to the control board. We've confirmed that this is the correct wire for the water pump. We'll now follow this wire down to the control board where it is plugged in. We'll unplug this wire, which will allow us room to be able to replace the water pump. We'll then feed the wire back through the machine. It'll be a little bit tight in this hole. You may want to lift and remove the white tube to gain further clearance. We'll then make sure the wire is free, and we'll remove the water pump from its lower housing. Now that the water pump's removed, we repeat the process to reinstall it. First would be to route the wire. First thing to do to reinstall the water pump is reroute the wire. We'll do this by pushing it back through its location hole. You may need to use a pair of long nose pliers to grab it. We'll pull the wire up clean and then we'll reconnect the water pump hose. With the water pump hose connected, we'll now reinstall the water pump into the lower ice tray. This is a matter of laying it flat on the floor and is done by a bit of feel. Once it's in its location, we push it towards the side of the machine to make sure it's in its correct spot. We'll then feed the wire through the machine. We'll reinstall the bypass hose now that we have the wire through, and then we'll move to the back of the machine. Now that the wire is back together, we can reinstall the condenser back into its correct location with its 4 mounting screws. It's usually easiest to start with one, line it up from the outside to the inside hole, and then do the same on the opposite side. Once these are lined up, we can then do the bottom 2 mounting screws. We'll then use the drill to tighten this back into position. Once all 4 screws are connected, we can then reconnect the water pump wire to the control board, which is just a simple push-on connection. That is now connected. We can make sure our wires are into the wire location slots, and we can reinstall the cover onto the control box. Just make sure all the wires are tucked up nice and neat. Now that the cover is back in place, we'll just check our mounting bolts are all tight. We can then reinstall the side cover to the inside of the machine. We line up the bottom clip with the slot on the inside of the machine. We'll just push it down into its location. We'll then install the top screw . And then the bottom screw. The water pump has now been replaced and we're now ready to put the machine back together. To reinstall the back cover, we line the side plate up with the bottom plate. Be careful of the edges, being folded steel, it is sharp. We'll hold that in place. And we put the top cover on, and we line the top cover up into its mounting holes like so, and then we can attach the two outer retaining screws. Just make sure the holes are lined up. Your water pump has now been replaced and the ice machine is ready to produce ice.